It is currently 10:17 PM, and we're coming out of executive session, and we're moving to item 15C, consideration and action on a resolution authorizing the town attorney to submit the intervenor status request form and to take any necessary actions in furtherance and support of the town's request for intervenor status to the Connecticut Siting Council and the application submitted by Wyndham Energy Center. Can I get a motion to adopt this resolution?
I'll make that motion.
Motion was made by Mr. Cottula. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. George. Discussion.
I'd like to amend the agenda item to reflect every location that intervenor is in the text, to change intervenor to party.
I'll second that.
Thank you. So we had a motion made by Mr. Cottula, seconded by Mr. Grandelski, to change every place in the resolution where it says intervenor to change the word to party.
Could we just have like one sentence to tell the public what that means?
The difference between intervenor and party status is, as with party status, we have the ability to recoup some of the costs from expended for legal fees, any expert witnesses, anything like that, as we go through the citing council process in regards to this docket item. So we had a motion and a second to make an amendment. Any discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, all is in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? The amendment carries. Now, this time, we will open up for discussion on the amended item, the item as amended. Is there any further discussion on this item? Just so the public's aware, this is in regards to the Vitus Energy Battery Storage Facility application that they submitted to the Connecticut Siting Council on October 11th. This is to allow the town of Killenly to have party status, which allows us to be involved in the Siting Council hearings and process. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. We'll now move on in the agenda. Next item up is item 16, council members and reports. Ms. Barclay, would you like to start, please?
I attended the Housing Authority meeting, and from the director's report, the elevator, after its repairs, is up and running. And for the second floor apartments, there's one moving in, and one person that had reneged on their application. They have Brian Cleveland as the consultant architect for the renovations at, what's the name of them, on Connecticut Ave? Birchwood Terrace. They're still waiting for approval of a small cities grant. They've been rejected twice. Yeah, and they have spent a lot of money, like $40,000-$50,000 each time for the plans, only to be rejected, and they have such a tight budget. From the planning and zoning meeting, they continue to have workshops, and they're still working on planned residential development and continuing to lock the public out from making any comments or any suggestions on the planned residential development. From the planning and zoning meeting, there was a public hearing for a zone map change on Hartford Pike near 4Gs from low density to village commercial. Keith Thurlow did not participate because he knows the developer, so there were only 3 members that made the decision, and 2 of them approved the zone change application, and Brian Card did not approve it, so that zone change was based on three people. There was also a public hearing on a zone map change for general commercial and industrial to central business district, and this is several properties on Commerce Avenue. They felt that the industrial is not appropriate. They wanted to make it more continuous zoning. It's encompasses 7.04 acres. That zone change was approved. And for new business, a special permit from Tilcon for a 3-year extension on the property on 548 Oregon Road. It's 112 acres of rural development. They haven't had any activity in 3 years, so the extension of the special permit was granted. And then the last discussion was the Connecticut Siting Council application, and that public meeting will be held on Monday at the high school at 7 o'clock. And that's it.
Thank you. Ms. George?
I attended the Finance Committee for NDDH. We have a meeting on the 14th, and we are recommending to the full board to move ahead with a potential dollar increase per capita. With that being said, the new director, Luigi, has made a number of changes that are facilitating much more efficiency. They have a plan in place to make the FIDA testing, the food safety and all that, where usually they have to depend on the state to set up training. It's usually only once or twice a year. They are dependent on when they are available. Well, they're allowing now internal training, which is going to be huge improvement. They are looking at, so when you look at NDDH, we've never had a complaint with the employees. They work their tails off. They have a great group of people that are out in the field constantly. We've seen their efficiencies come up. Luigi's working on a platform where we will be able to pinpoint every month. They're working on that now with some of their upgrades, like what the actual work is being done in each town under all of their different, categories, but it's gonna take time. They did try to get a grant to actually get tablets out in the field, so instead of having to do everything kind of dinosaur age, everything's handwritten, then they have to come back after they're out in the field all day, put everything into the computer. They're trying to streamline those processes. So they're gonna put that, I believe it was about $40,000, in the upcoming budget. And they recognize that you can't put the whole burden on per capita, so there's gonna be some fees, updates and changes. But overall, they're doing a really good job. So we'll get more information. And we are getting that data sooner than later. So they've started budgeting a couple months sooner than they normally would. So that's one. ERTD, tourism. I had mentioned a couple months ago that there was a potential infusion of $1 million additional to tourism. Well, that was taken out in the budget. So unfortunately, each tourism district gets about $400,000 a year earmarked. That's it. Now that's for 41 towns. Break that down, okay? When you look at the return on investment for tourism, it's 9 to 10 times what they're putting in. So it's actually an investment to put money into your tourism market, okay? So I was just appointed to the legislative committee. So I'll be doing marketing and legislative. Our goal is to put together a deck where we can work with legislators, we can work with small businesses, and we can try and get the state to earmark a certain minimum amount of money, like make it a budget line item, that they can't just wipe out every year. Because when you look, how many other commissions, agencies in this state actually have a 9 to 10 time increase in revenue besides tourism. It makes no sense not to fund this. And then I went to economic development. We already covered two things that we took, the tree life, the Brickyard project. That is on, let me see, get my paper here. Okay, so that is on timeline to be finished June, July 2025. What's the final thing going out to bid in January? We're doing the box culvert right now. And I wanted to make a note, so the Imperial Room, the new restaurant, is doing fantastic. And because of where that box culvert is, like right on that road, we don't want to have an impact or compromise their business. So we're making sure everyone understands you can still go to the restaurant, you can still park and everything. That project is not going to affect us. And the total amount in the fund, so it was $309,502.03, the balance for the trust fund. And right now, it's got $43,098.03, and that's because of this project, right? Okay, so we will replenish that, obviously, but everything is on track to be done with the Brickyard June, July.
Yep.
Did I forget anything? Oh, and the ordinance subcommittee. So we hadn't met since 2023, right? So we reconvened. Michelle pointed out how when we had seated the new body, we had changed people. So Ula is our new chair, and we talked about the vision committee. We came up with some ideas, but we're gonna reconvene when we can get those dates again to get that off the ground. We did discuss that there will be the goal is no town councilors, no town employees. It's going to be a community committee. We talked about 9 members from all different sectors of the community and 3 alternates. And the things, we're still kind of working out what that's gonna be. But yeah, so that's it. That's what I got.
Thank you. I was there for a good chunk of the ordinance subcommittee meeting. Had fiscal subcommittee meeting as well, which we went over the 2 buses. We also had 2 applications submitted from agencies for funding from the opioid settlement. We put a request out for more information from both those agencies, and we're waiting to get that information back before we make any recommendations or pass it through to the council. Also attended the Historic District Commission, had a presentation on from the Trolley Museum in Connecticut, and talked about the trolley that used to come from Putnam down into Killenly, being the first one in the area. They had some pretty cool old pictures from way back when that was here over 100 years ago. Attended the ribbon cutting at KMS, and also attended the ceremony recognizing Elise Blumenthal Fetterman at the Beth Israel place, and I was blown away by how sharp she is at 97 years old, and her sense of humor was just unbelievable. So I was definitely glad I was able to attend that. The Cable Advisory Committee meets next week on the 21st. Meets every other month. And that's all I have. Ms. Wakefield.
All right, so the 26th was a very busy day in town. I was at the Great Room presentation at the library, well attended. They had some really cool projects. It's a great way to foster writing and reading with children, even young children. My 8-month-old granddaughter was there, or 7 months, she was 7 months at that point. Teaching her how to use a marker and make colors and color in her critter and do all sorts of stuff. And we'll keep that, and it was a good keepsake. It was great. It's great to see all the families showing up when you work doing crafts and stories with their children. Moved on to the park. That was well attended, lots and lots of people. I heard the town hall gave out almost 1,000 bags of candy. So the turnout for the Main Street trick or treating last year was around 8, I guess you guys gave out. I figured it'd be somewhere around 1,000, as this, Main Street and this spectacular parade, I think, continues to grow. I'm sure there's gonna be more and more people coming. I mean, it was great, I mean, it was well managed, you know, people were very, they behaved, even though there's a lot of them, they were well behaved. The drumming circle and the band actually worked rather well. I thought they'd clash in Davis Park, but they didn't. The parade had 49 floats plus marchers, so that was really well received. Youth hoop, I called Bucky today. They had 347 youth hoop participants. I think that's the most they've ever had, and he thinks it's the largest number of girls that have ever participated, and they're kind of giving a little bit of credit to Caitlin Clark and the interest into girls' sports, so, which is really great. I mean, that's a lot of kids learning basketball, so. Rec is really super busy. They have this Saturday, they have the Grinch breakfast. There are still some tickets about, have some green eggs and ham. There's 2 seatings, 8 and 9:30. Starting December 6th is Frosty's Big Night Out at the park. Santa comes, Frosty's there, Rudolph's there. And then the next day, is the beginning of the Sousaphite Christmas Carol, the Christmas Carol with Dr. Seuss cake. So, Cat in the Hat, and I'm sure there's some really interesting some critters. I actually, I'm kind of like, I'd like to see the mishmash of that, how that's going to come together. That's the 7th, the 8th, the 13th, the 14th, and the 15th. The 14th is actually Breakfast with Santa. There's different time slots from like 8 o'clock all the way up to almost 11. And then there's a craft table, a Christmas craft, and you get cards. In addition, plus pictures of Santa Claus, and have breakfast with the family, so it's a nice family time. Tickets usually go quickly on that, so you have to, pre-buy it, early, always helpful. A solid waste met on the 28th of October. Got some good, feedback, the numbers are looking good, still are looking pretty good. But, we're actually making a little bit more money than we had the year before. Then that was the beginning of the week of ribbon cutting. We had Orion, Utilities on the 29th. We had done marketing on the 30th, which, Mr. Giambattista, was there with me. Patty was with me with, Orion. The first was, Killingley Recycling Center, which is really super exciting, because most recycling centers only do a portion of the 10 cents. This one actually did the whole 10 cents, and it's completely automated. They actually process, 8,100 cans in 10, 15 minutes. They just dump them in, and it just sorts the whole day. And then of course the KMS ribbon cutting, which was very exciting. Elsie's birthday party, can't say enough about that one. When she called me, she goes, I went to school in Wakefield, which was actually my great aunt, and I'm like, had to tell her that great aunt Lucille was not still with us, but Elsie is, and she's alive and she's kicking. And other than that, yeah. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Cottula.
I had a solid waste subcommittee with Tammy and Mr. Grandowski, and I did several permanent building committee meetings. I think they resolved the roof issue finally, so that's all I have.
Could you elaborate on the roof? Do you have any more?
Well, at the last meeting, they submitted a letter to send out to tell them to go to work, so I don't know where it went after that, so Mary might have more on,
Yeah, so this is for
This is for the Westfield Avenue property. They have ultimately decided to go with additional fasteners on the existing roof insulation, and then they're overlaying with an additional 2 inches of insulation and the remaining rubber membrane, as was originally specified. They were trying to determine, I think there's an RFI in right now with regards to just formalizing the documentation around the fastening pattern, because they have to have the new fasteners so many inches away from the existing fasteners and all of that kind of stuff. So we have to get through that, but we're trying to get them underway. But I believe that we're getting there. The weather will hold out.
You've been lucky. Thank you.
I did Board of Education meetings. Kyle talked about the new program, Love 146, that talks about sex trafficking and teaches kids, to protect themselves. They're still working on the ad hoc committees for bullying and school mascots. Mrs. Clark reviewed the budget. It looks good. There's a slight surplus in salaries right now projected. Director of Mental Health gave a big report on the climate surveys that they issued to the kids. They gave math and English coordinators gave reports on where we are with math and English, and the basis of it, basic result was we're improving, but we still have work to do. We're following the national trends. The vice superintendent talked about attendance being up. I also sat in at the WPCA meeting. The money looks good. The process is good. It's running good. They're doing more I&I work to the tune of $778,000. There was a lot of talk about the different scenarios that come up. That's what Ed was talking about. For instance, somebody had disconnected on their own and they added or redid something on their house, and they wanted to reconnect, and they went to charge them the full fee, and then they decided they weren't going to. So there are a lot of gray issues that they'll have to work out. And they're going to get a new scale where they can weigh their trucks at the cost of $175,000, and that's because they are getting shortchanged because they're pumping less than what they think they're pumping. So they're shortchanging themselves. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Whitehead?
I attended the fiscal subcommittee with you, and you've already went over all the intricacies of that. So that'll be it.
Okay. Mr. Gambatista?
Agricultural Commission did not meet again. They didn't have quorum. I was able to attend the ribbon cutting for Dunn Marketing. She's a friend of mine. It was nice to see the top of that building. I hadn't been up there. I don't think I've ever been up there. And just to see that whole building come to life was pretty impressive. I think it's pretty much almost all full, so that was wonderful. I was able to go to the ribbon cutting along with a few of you for the KMS. I thought that they did a wonderful job, obviously despite the issues we're hearing about the bathroom access. But the wing was beautiful. The art and music room stood out to me. I just thought they were fantastic. And then probably the best part of the month was the event for Elsie Blumenthal Fetterman. That was, you didn't know what to expect. I was very surprised at just the raw emotion of that, of these families speaking of, their families and what they went through. It was just really moving. So, and she was, just like you said, Jason, her wit and humor at that age was something to be envied. And that's it for me.
Thank you. I just want to add one thing. I did sit in on the Killenly Administrators Association contract negotiation, the union contract negotiations, and as Dr. Nash said, that's going before the Board of Ed during executive session. And That about wraps it up. Oh, sorry, Ed. I went to Tony and then
That's all right.
Mr. Grandelsky, I apologize.
Conservation Commission, they're looking into their environmental award, which they want to give out every year. Their walks were successful. They're still looking at possibly creating a new bus tour, but that does always happen. People enjoy it. They've been in town all their lives, and they've never seen some of these things that are hidden out in the woodwork, or the outer, whatever it is. We're finding them out. And everybody has a good time. It's always a very positive. Chase Reservoir, how is that forest management and how is that going along? They weren't, we gotta get that going. It's been going, but there was something about cutting trees and blocking something and.
Yeah, so our forest management person, she's been out marking the trees for the harvesting that we were going to do, the ash trees. So she just actually completed that marking yesterday, I want to say. So she's going to be coordinating with the harvester to actually start that process. There is a thick amount of invasives in one area, in a good portion of that ash area. And so there is a high concern that we're going to harvest those trees out and then the invasives are just going to run wild. So there's a recommendation that we do some invasive control. So we're reaching out to Connecticut Deep to try and see what invasive controls we might be able to do in that area, and what grant opportunity might be available to be able to do that invasive control. Because clearly if you open it wide open, if you open it up like that and provide as much sun, that invasives, they're just going to take off. And so that's one of the other components that we're balancing at the moment too as well. So, but she just finished marking yesterday for that harvesting. So that's going to be getting ready to go.
Because we've been talking about forest management plan for that, it's finally,
Yep.
coming out. We get that one done, then we can look at some of the other parcels.
Yep, that's our next step after this, is to start talking with her. Once we get through this one, is the next piece of property that we need to talk about how much it's going to be to develop a forest management plan for the next critical property.
All right. We will now move on the agenda. And we've already done 17A, so we'll move on to 18. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Grandelsky, seconded by Mr. Cottula. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? This meeting is adjourned. It is 10:46 PM.